people. I know. Thanks. I do know there's a Stanislaus 2030 meeting going on that some people that attend this committee are at, and so we may get some people trickling in at 12. But first order of business is the minutes. We want to approve the minutes from last meeting when Joe Lopez came and spoke. And I will entertain a motion to approve the minutes.
I'll second. Oh, you want? I'll make a motion to approve the minutes from last year's meeting. I'll do some. You know,
Want a second? Yeah, of course you're a member. Yeah, I think you're a member.
I second.
Yeah. You were, yes,
you are now.
you are now. I don't think you ever stopped being a member, so that's, you know. All right, so it's a little light today, so Lisa, if you're ready to do a report.
It's been a very busy week, I can assure you. I don't think I have anything new to report on the bills, actually. I'm just trying to keep up with all the activities happening in the assembly. The assembly member has been working throughout the district, a number of community events, and I'm just gonna limit my report to keeping up with what's going on around here.
All right, thank you. Mr. Qualls, tell us everything that's going wrong in the legislation. Yeah, yeah.
Okay, so as we know, there was a primary. Now we got the general election in November, and some of the referendums that are out there are which are the first one would be the referendum on flavor tobacco. And this is it's up to date, like if I can find. So this is kind of a weird one because if you vote yes, you actually uphold the current law. If you vote no, then it repeals it. And then the plastic waste ban and tax, you may have heard the possible legislative agreement on that. Well, SB 564, well, apparently there has been some consternation in that, and they're not working well together. The environmentalists aren't really happy with the agreement. They think that it puts it out to 2032. So that may end up back on the ballot. They may not pull that off the ballot. Be interested to see how that works because it's a tax and with the economy where it's going, inflation stuff. It's going to be hard to see somebody would be willing to vote for additional tax. Then we have the travel in-person sports wagering. Talking to this number of cities, there's actually cities derive a lot of income from those card rooms. The Lodi gets $300,000 a year just from there. The city of Commerce gets between 85 and 90% of their revenue comes from their card rooms. So it's a lot of money to pay out. So that's going to be recommended from there also. And there's a couple that are still waiting to be approved. The signature should be verified by the county. I don't know what the date is for them. So the one we were happy to see that didn't qualify was the California Business Roundtable. That's what it would have made a lot harder for cities, counties, and special districts to either enact or extend new taxes or new fees, or existing taxes, existing fees. They're very, very hard on cities to be able to provide the service they have to without the ability to do so. It was going to be retroactive to January 1st of 2022. So we're going to be interested to see if they try to make it retroactive to 2022 and 2024. That means any tax or fee that's passed after January 1st of 2022, we have to move forward. That'd be really hard. We did lead Cal City's budget asks. We asked for $108 million to help with the SB 1383 implementation. We were granted that funding. We asked for $500 million to help with economic development and housing. We did not receive that. And then the state of cities and counties, $933.5 million unfunded mandates. They've owed this since 2004. They're paying interest on it every year. Almost 467 million of that is owed to cities. But we were not granted that request, but there's still time to do so in the trailer bills. AB 1944. So this has to do with allowing meetings, council meetings, board meetings, planning commission that bill to meet virtually. And what it does, it changes the Brown Act, which, in the Brown Act, if somebody wants to attend a meeting virtually, they have to post the location of where they'll be at legally. people allowed, or be allowed to be there. So that bill, fortunately, is dead for this year, but hopefully they'll bring it back for next year. There was just waiting too many amendments that they want. That made some authors just wasn't positive. AB 2011 is one I'm going to ask for a letter of opposition on from the chamber. What this does is allows developers by right to build affordable housing, retail, and commercially zoned areas. Cities spend hundreds of thousands of dollars on their housing elements to determine where they want their housing, where they want the commercial, where they want the industrial to be. And this age of the state is trying to move all residents or most building toward the transit hubs to keep down on vehicle miles traveled. This is not the right time to be putting housing out in industrial commercial areas. There's also a problem with public transit in those areas, and there's no services. Probably no grocery stores and things like that. So I am going to ask the council, the GRC, and the chamber adopt a letter of opposition. If we choose to do so, I can get you a copy of that. Let's see.
Yeah, send a copy to Trish and I.
So AB 2237. So this says that every transportation project has to go to CARB. And if it does not reduce greenhouse gas emissions or vehicle miles traveled, then the state can reallocate those money to other projects that do that. We both people agree that this violates SB 1. It says those funds will not be used for any other purposes. It will also prohibit the use of local transportation tax. So the taxes and Measure L funds that we use are being paid by the citizens would have to not be able to use for the project. We don't know how this applies to residential facilities. Residential development can add vehicle miles travel and increase greenhouse gas emissions. So we're not quite sure how that's going to apply to that. And then SB 932. This is going to create liability issues for cities and for local government. It require cities and counties to adopt traffic calming elements and bicycle lanes. There was a case in Southern California where a cyclist was hit and injured in the street, and they sued the city, and the city had to pay. Was awarded, the plaintiff was awarded $49 million. They said the city did not have to widen the street but put in bicycle lane. So this would be one that's good. Obviously, could be very costly for cities. SB 897, the 2-year build out I brought you before. This would allow accessory dwelling units to be raised to a height of 25 feet, or currently 16 feet. That's the 2-year bill. SB 1038 would have extended the prohibition on using biometric surveillance systems by public safety. And then I'm going to skip down to SB 1326. Which allows the government to enter into agreements with other states to be able to sell and purchase cannabis products across state line. So we heard about the CARES Court, and there's still not a lot of information out on it. In fact, the government put $65 million in the budget for the CARES Court. The legislature is waiting to see what's actually in it. There aren't a lot of details before they allocate any funding to it. Originally, they said it's only going to help between 7,000 and 12,000 people statewide, but they're saying now it's probably a lot more than that. Some of our concerns with the CSAC is suggesting accountability for local governments, which means they may be looking to have cities be responsible for housing after they finish the program. The CARES program plays into. There's a legislative calendar. 30th is last day for the legislative measure. They're not doing it this year. Summer reset starts on the 1st. They come back on the 1st. And then just kind of the lighter side, I didn't know that Mylar balloons have to be permanently labeled as constructed and electronic electrically conductive material. PG probably knows that. That's probably a problem for that. Kind of interesting. I didn't even bills that we never even heard of and didn't know that they were out there. So anyway, this bill it is dead, or what we send it was on 1st September 2026. Yeah, right. If you have any questions on these bills, please feel free to contact me.
Was PG&E opposed to that bill?
I think, I don't know what our involvement would be, but me personally, with all the outages caused by Mylar balloons, I think they should be banned. That we're just not responsible enough to time down.
Yeah.
But don't they have to have a thing on the base? They have to
They have to be sold with the weight, but people automatically take them off and walk around with them, and then they let go of them.
How many crying babies have we seen who lost their balloons?
Lots of outages, though, MIT can attest to that. It's constant. We constantly do public outreach around this time of year. Graduation season is among us, and everybody's buying the Mylars, taking them up to the outdoor amphitheaters and stadiums and letting them go. And around those areas are more so than not power lines. They get hung up and it causes large water damage.
I have to admit, my grandson had the party on Sunday night and I did not buy him Mylar balloons, but they were roasting s'mores by a little fire out in the back. They live out in the country and I did see a balloon float away and so, yeah.
That's what caused that power outage.
Exactly,
Oh, your
exactly.
fault, John.
In Ripon, that big power outage in Ripon.
Because it took out my flat screen, so now I know who to.
Exactly, yeah,
They claim to jump the line.
yeah. Parks Greenhouse, that's where it was, so.
Bree wasn't here, but I do have a report. attached,
Okay.
and I can send it to the group as well.
Okay, great, yeah. All right. Is there anything, did you read it? Is there anything? Okay,
But I'll send it to.
send it to the group,
afterwards,
yeah. All right, great. Okay, so now we are for our feature presentation. So Daniel, AMR, you can go up there and we will record you and,
Made it sound scary.
You see we're coming.
yeah, I guess, yeah, record you, yeah. Remember, it is being recorded.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I'm gonna follow along with my own computer, because I don't know if I can. My eyesight, I don't know if I can see it.
get a video of them grabbing.
I
Before.
didn't want to put too much on my plate, but I didn't know how many people were gonna be here.
What they think is that you can't see their faces, but the camera's catching their
Yeah.
backsides, so.
My comments this show.
Okay,
Lisa, can you hear me okay?
Yes, no problem at all. Thank you.
There you go.
whenever you're ready.
All right. My name is Daniel Inigas. I am the new regional director for American Medical Response here in San Jose County. What I'm hoping to do today is just educate the chamber of who we are, what we bring to the county, kind of our history, and also just some challenges in today's healthcare system and what those challenges are across the board and what we're trying to do on the front end to make sure that we are fulfilling our obligations to the patients and the population here in Modesto and all the staff. So, go ahead next slide. So who we are your 911 emergency transport agency for all of Stanislaus County, mainly, other than there's some other rural hospital district areas, but we do provide mutual aid for them and they do for us. But we are your 911 primary ambulance service for Modesto and most of Stanislaus County. We began operations in Modesto all the way back in 1959 under the name Modesto Series Ambulance. And over the years with acquisition and combining a smaller agency, we created AMR. And this county was one of like first original big counties that made AMR the national company that it is today. We provide ALS, so advanced life support, which is your paramedic and EMT, your basic life support, transport, interfacility things, bringing patients to doctor's appointment from hospital to hospital, all that kind of stuff. CCT, which is your critical care transport, which is ambulances that have nurses on board and do everything from neonatal care to more intensive care thing, hospital, critical care type patients. And we also are the air providers, one of the air providers for San Jose County. So what my Reach hat, so Reach, CalStar, all of that fall under the AMR family. So not a lot of people know that, but we have a giant air division as well, and with fixed wings, airplanes to helicopters to all kinds of things. So we take care of pretty much any type of medical services from your wheelchair vehicle all the way up to airplanes. We employ approximately 250 EMTs and paramedics in Stanislaus County alone. So these are, we're a huge company. This Stanislaus County is actually one of the largest counties that AMR, especially in California, that AMR runs. So that's kudos to us. And most of these people work, live, and are part of this community, grew up in this community, and that's our workforce. And last year, we ran 60,000, it was actually over 60,000 calls for service in 2021 alone. On top of that, we also control, and as a part of our branch, is the Valley Regional Emergency Communications Center that is located here in Modesto. It is known as VREC. So VREC became a secondary PSAP center back in 1986 and received its ACE accreditation in 2006. ACE accreditation is just kind of an award for dispatching excellence. It is the only center in the county that provides emergency medical dispatch services. So it's called EMD in the call. So when you call into the 911 center, it goes to police. Police will say, you know, the fire or PD fire department gets it, they give it to us. We go through the emergency dispatch so we know what level of care to send the fire department and ambulance. And we work in conjunction with our SR 911 to make sure you get the appropriate resources. We began dispatching for all of 911 providers in Stanislaus County in 2002. And in 2015, which is really cool, AMR was selected by the state to participate in the community education or community paramedic pilot program. Stanislaus was chosen to focus on behavioral health specifically, and we were only one of 13 counties selected to be part of the program. So it's really cool. Community paramedicine, it's a little smaller in California due to a lot of California regulations and control compared to what you might see community paramedicine programs in other states. But for Stanislaus to be a part of that program, and what we specifically do is focus on mental health. And so we have these community paramedicines that are on the road helping the police officers handle mental health specifically, making sure those patients receive the right level of care, and that might not necessarily be an emergency. So that's just one of the kind of kudos that we have in this county that a lot of other counties don't have. So on top of just our 911 emergency services, we have a really large, and what we're proud of, community footprint in this area that I know a lot of people know. So one of the things that we are part of is we do have a tactical team that are tactical SWAT type medics that respond, train, and go out on SWAT team callouts. So along with the SWAT teams and the law enforcement agencies, we have a tactical ambulance with tactical teams that go through tactical training. So it's a specific subgroup of employees that when they're not on their time in an ambulance, they go out, and we do that to no cost to the city to make sure that these officers are as safe as they can be, also for patients or anyone else that may need. So we deploy those teams pretty a lot. So that's just kind of one of those cool things. A lot of training, a lot of pride in that team. AMR is the national contractor for FEMA. So for any FEMA deployments, we are the main contractor for that service. So whenever there's hurricanes or even the COVID crisis, when we deploy teams to almost every single hurricane. When New York was at its worst, we deployed teams to New York to help during the COVID crisis. We would always be the team sending, and for the last couple of years, we have now been receiving teams due to all the fires in California, right? So that's it. I think I've been to every single fire in the last couple of years in some form of leadership role for our team, but we have a giant footprint. I think that is our local team on a Florida deployment. These are all our local teams, by the way. So we have our national team that funnels in to this larger FEMA deployment, but these are the pride of our local team that we're sending on these deployments. But we also, provide medical standbys for these fires, and not just the larger fires, but even fire standbys that maybe have grown. We can be that local response team that we can be dedicated to the fire line and those fire guys. So on top of that, we actually have a community education coordinator that works with city leaders in different schools and organizations So we have a very large community education footprint that we're really proud of. So we do a lot of community hands-on CPR, a lot of stop the bleed campaigns. We do every 15 minutes with, I think, almost every high school in our community where we try to educate the senior group of the dangers of drinking and driving. And we work hand in hand with our local fire departments and our police agencies to that program. So you'll probably see us in a lot of the bigger community events within the city and within the county. Anything that we can be involved in, we're very much interested in. Can we provide that community education? So much of healthcare and especially those emergency situations, the outcome is really changed, especially say cardiac arrest, with that community first responder involvement in starting CPR. So we take a lot of pride. I think I was talking to Diane, who is our community service. I think we've trained 900 plus people this year alone on hands-on CPR to make sure that people just have that.
Including Elvis, right?
Including Elvis.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So just more of that community engagement type of thing. So if you see us out there, that's what we're there for. So challenges in today's system. So I want to just take a moment, just kind of talk about the reality of how hard EMS can be right now. It's never easy, but the last couple of years have made it tremendously more challenging. So these are some challenging areas that I just want to highlight. So obviously, COVID-19. And with COVID-19, that brought an increase in call volume, that brought increased provider stress. It's already a stressful job, right? And now you have this unknown factor when COVID first hit of our providers getting sick, them being fearful of bringing home COVID to their families. And it really taxed the healthcare system in general, right? And it just really brought a lot of new challenges. There were so many things from the CDC, this is right, this is wrong, you know, all this and that. It caused for a rapid need to be able to adapt and change and get out education. And that's really taxing and stressful for a workforce that already has all the stress put on them. So COVID was definitely a challenge. We'll talk about some other secondary challenges that came along with COVID. One of those, the biggest one, is staffing shortage, right? Probably the biggest threat to all of healthcare is staffing shortages. And we weren't immune to the staffing shortages that everyone talks about from every industry. So this is a national crisis in general for all agencies, and ours unfortunately wasn't one of the ones that was missed by it. So what we've seen is a lot of people are leaving healthcare in general. Again, we talk about a lot of the stress, mental health and mental health patients have been a giant burden on the system that has really driven people away from healthcare. Our own providers being at more risk than they've ever been, right? The factors of them being assaulted on scene, all these things that have made just healthcare dangerous and not as appealing as it used to be. And COVID, right? People that really scared a lot of people away from healthcare was just the COVID crisis, and that being scary, and they didn't want to get sick and bring stuff home, and that just drove. And again, that's in hospitals, that's in fire agencies, that's in private ambulances, that's across the board. We see that it's a problem that we're all trying to adapt to. A lot of people don't know that COVID delayed school, so school shut down. So for us, that's a huge problem, right? So that influx of new EMTs and new paramedics coming into the door, on top of the staffing shortages and all the other crises, that stopped new EMTs and paramedics from being trained. That's a specialized training that those paramedic schools can take up to 2 years. And all that was shut down for a good year and a half in a lot of these programs. So on top of people leaving healthcare, there was no new people coming in, right? And so that really put us back a couple of years that we're going to have to recover from, and we'll get there, but it takes time, right? We can't just hire anyone from off the street. They obviously have to have schooling and training and all these things, so that takes time. One of the hugest things right now in healthcare, which is an issue, especially for the EMS system, is hospital bed delays. And again, hospitals have the same problem, right? They have an increase of patients, they have staffing shortages on their end. We don't have enough hospital beds for patients. It's very hard with mental health is a huge crisis in the nation right now, probably even more so than COVID. And those patients are very hard to find beds for, right? To discharge them out of the hospital and out of the ER. We don't have enough mental health beds in the state. So that causes this backup. What that backup does is causes these hospital delays. So we see ambulances waiting with patients on gurneys for hours and hours at a time. It's a morale killer. It keeps ambulances off the road, right? It makes it very difficult to run a system when we have these really long hospital wall time where we have our medics and EMTs with patients sitting at ERs for hours at multiple, and it's not a knock against the hospital because they have tremendous amounts of challenge and they have the same challenges we have, they have. And again, a lot of it is just bed placement, right? And not having enough beds. But there is that trickle down effect of now you see it where ambulances are delayed, there's not as many ambulances on the road. It makes it very difficult. And the last one I'm going to talk about and go more details is supply chain. So like everything else we talked about, the chip shortage affected ambulances tremendously, and it is still seen that. Chip shortages, parts delayed. Unfortunately for car manufacturers, developing ambulances sometimes take a back seat to just getting what the general population needs. They need vehicles, and if those vehicles, people need new cars, sometimes ambulances get lost in that. And so we have those delays. We had medication shortages before even COVID hit, and with COVID, it just made that harder. So we have medication shortages that make it difficult. And just, we have the rising fuel costs. If you think your car is expensive to fill up, imagine an ambulance being on the road 12 hours a day, pretty much idling all day long, right? So there's those challenges, and that's been a tremendous burden on the healthcare system. So how do we overcome, right? What have we done to try to stay on top of these things? For COVID-19, we really doubled down on a couple things. Right? We've always at AMR had one of the most aggressive and high employee benefits package. Our pay is higher than any other private ambulance company. We try to make it be a career, right? We want it to be a career. And so employee pay is a big part of that. So we do a lot of that, and I'll talk about that a little bit more. Nurse navigation system. We right away got out in front of this, and we created a nurse call-in line for our employees that they can call in if they had anything that they needed to talk about, that they felt sick, symptoms, things like that. They have this nurse navigation line they can call into to get extra information on how to navigate that, especially when things were new. Pre-screen testing, we still do that. So we have all of our employees do a self-screening before they come into work. They know what signs, symptoms to look out for. And they know if they have any type of symptoms, any type of exposure, anything like that, not only do they self-screen, but we can test them right then before they start their shift, right? So we can test them every day of their shift if they needed to. They come in, they attest, so we make sure that we're keeping our partners safe and our patients safe. And that gave everyone a little bit more ease, right? A lot of this, we had our national team was set up for employee education right away. So to put out correct documentation, there's a lot of fake news out there, and there's a lot of just, misinformation, better way to put it. And we created a database for the employees to go to get up-to-date information from the CDC and guidelines from the state. And that's what that increased education. Due to our national supply chains and our national footprint, we were always able to get high quality personal protective equipment. So I know for a lot of people working between either our national providers or our local resources, we were always able to provide gowns and fit test masks. We fit test our employees every year through the correct masks to make sure they're safe. On top of that, during COVID, we purchased ambulance decontamination fogger machine. So if you did have a COVID positive patient or even a suspected COVID patient, we could fog our ambulances to disinfect them to give a little bit more peace of mind to them. We keep records of all our employees' vaccination records like we do with all our things. So we have that to try to do what we can to keep our employees safe. We were able to get vaccines ourselves and set up vaccine clinics in a lot of operations to anyone that wanted to. We try to take away any challenges to our workforce. So how do we overcome staffing shortages? Again, this is probably our biggest one. So I talked about, but we have one of the highest competitive compensation packets to make it a career pathway to stay in EMS with AMR. Currently we have sign-on bonuses. Right now, if you're a paramedic and you want to come to us, I think we have a sign-on bonus of $10,000 to just come work, right? To try to bring in new people. We have scholarship programs that we do with our existing employee group. We will sponsor EMTs to go to paramedic school. It's like a $15,000 program, and we pay for that to keep them in-house, make EMTs medics, and just keep that pipeline. And we get to support our employee group. We are just about to start, which we're really excited about, an Earn While You Learn program where we're actually grabbing and we're working with community leaders in this community to grab people that maybe didn't even think about EMS and healthcare as a profession. Can we sponsor you to go to EMT school? And so we will grab a group of employees, send them to the Modesto Junior College. We will pay for their EMT school, and then they come work for us, right? And then can we then pay for them to go to medic school? And we just keep this pipeline of people going and allow us opportunity to get people into the healthcare sector that may not have thought about it. So that's a really cool program because not only is it benefit to us of getting new employees, but we can partner with community leaders. We're through the school boards and things like that to support that within our own local community. We have a really good mental health program, especially in Stanislaus County. We have critical incident stress management training team. So we have a peer group of employees that go through mental health training that they can be this peer support. We have a national team called GMR Health that is more of a national support platform that can give people the mental health resources. We have EAP that gives financial counseling, marriage counseling, any type of counseling that you can think of. A lot of the stress is outside stress, right? And then work stress can just combat that. So we can be on the front end of helping them through those times. We know that's important. We have a therapy dog. Last meeting, I brought her, right? I didn't want her distracted at the time, but that's Daisy. So Daisy is our local therapy dog that is in Stanislaus County. Not all AMR counties have it. I think there are only 36 dogs across the nation. So we're really lucky to have one here. Daisy is the best one. I'm saying she is fantastic. So that's my own bias for sure. But Daisy is fantastic. So she's already been, we've only had her for maybe 2 months, and we can already tell just the tremendous benefit she's brought to our county. And she's mainly here for our providers, right? We love bringing her to community events. We've already brought her to the hospital, but really she's there for our providers just to give that peace of mind. And it's amazing what these dogs can do to get people to open up, to relax and things like that.
Daniel, you took her to the county dispatch center.
We did. We took her to county we took her to SR 911. We took her to VREG. We'll take her wherever anyone wants her to go. So she loves it. We love to make her part of this. So she definitely belongs to this community, right? And so anywhere we can bring her, she loves it. We have strong union relationships that help during this. So we get them involved on the front end of thinking of innovation things and what can we do to better this environment for our employees, and how can we collaborate in a employment union to make this a better place to work, and so we keep people in healthcare. We do have a large community footprint. So one of the biggest and best things about AMR, I think, is how large we are. Even though we're locally managed, we do have national support. When we have times in crisis, we can draw upon our other local counties. If we had an emergency need in this county, AMR surrounds and we're in Stanislaus County, Sacramento, Yellow, Placer, all of the Bay Area. And then we can draw, and we do when we need these things. So whether it's Super Bowl 50 where they need help, the Warriors parade on Monday, probably be reaching out for help. If we have an emergency situation, we can call on our other counties locally to help us. And not a lot of, I don't think there's anyone that can say they can do that. And we're looking to EMS system innovation. So also one thing I think we do is that because we're so large, we breed innovation and what works in different counties, we can bring to other counties. So we've, with the help of the LUMSA, the Legal Medical Control Agency here, we have started tier dispatching, where now our communication center will maybe send a BLS unit to your call because it's the right care at the right patient. It allows us to have more ambulance calls, right? If you need an advanced life support ambulance, you'll get that, right? And it just allows us to have more ambulance on the road. There's a lot of systems now moving to that, and Stanislaus County was kind of on the front end of that. So again, kudos to the county. I already talked about community paramedicine. One thing that's really cool that you may see out there is this ET3 program that AMR was selected, and it was one of the few that was selected to participate in ET3. And it is a trial 5-year program where we can bring telehealth to patients. And we're doing the training this month that should start in the middle of July, hopefully. And that's if you call 911, say you're 95 years old, you just needed, you got scared, whatever the case may be, you needed a prescription filled. We have the option to say, hey, would you like a telehealth, a telemedicine visit? Our providers will have these computers that they can pop it within a button, hit a button, and a doctor comes up. And they have this video chat one-on-one with these doctors, that these are ER doctors that are trained in this field, that can have these one-on-one telehealth with the patients, get them that comfort and care that they need. If appropriate need be, we'll take them to the hospital, and that doesn't change. If the doctor can have this video conference with them and get them in these minor acuity situations to handle it at home, and it keeps them out of the ER, it keeps them off of these wall delays and all that, then it allows us to do that. So it's been super effective in other counties, and we get to bring it to our county here very soon, which is just, it's always cool to have another tool in the toolbox for our providers, and to give the patients another option that is new, and we're one of the counties that get to do it. So we're really excited. Sometimes through crisis breeds innovation, and this is one of those times. So. So just really quick, due to our national strength, we have a tremendous partnership with all these vendors, and it puts us in priority to get units and supplies and things like that maybe others struggle at times. We don't, not that we don't struggle, but we definitely have a stronger footprint because we're this national company and we need national contract. On top of that, again, like I talked about, same thing like with staffing. We have another operation. I all of a sudden don't have something. I'm putting the word out to all our counties who can get this. Oh yeah, I have that, come grab, right? And we just have that kind of flexibility that most don't. I didn't talk about hospital wall times because really that is a hospital managed problem, right? And though we're always looking to partner with hospitals and county EMS agencies, I don't want to speak to their challenge. I know it's a very big challenge for us. But how they get past that, I know is just going to take a lot of work on not just hospitals, not just EMS providers. That's legislation change. That's a really big picture, but hopefully needs to be addressed, especially in this. So really, I tried to breeze through that as quickly as possible. I wanted to allow any questions you have of us. I don't know how familiar everyone is with AMR and who we are, so I was hoping to just bring that to you. I appreciate the time to talk. If you have any questions, I'll be happy to answer. I do have my email for those that may watch it later. And if you have any questions, please feel free to. So anything?
It's a great job. So that, I guess it's a lot of to stay at the hospital with the TB transport strong patients. I mean, Is that because hospital staff doesn't have the staff to, most service between, they go and say in an emergency room, I know yours are gonna be much more severe in some cases not. What's the difference between somebody going to the hospital emergency room, sitting in the waiting room? And you bring somebody, like I said, that's got to hit the operation, the availability of ambulances for other maybe more, you know, dangerous, you know, or yeah, you know, other patients like that, you know.
And that is our stress, right, is when, and that has been kind of the friction between the EMS side and the hospital side. As at what point, okay, we're here. Can we bring them out to the lobby? Can we, here's a bed over here, but they don't have the staffing to take care of them. But at least they're here. We have people waiting for ambulances that don't have anyone caring for them, right? So there is this friction, unfortunately, that, you know, some of it is county policy, some of this is local hospital practice. Some of this is, again, laws, legislation. So we always try to look to keep good positive partnership with our hospitals to work through these challenges. It is a challenge everywhere, right? It is a challenge in some areas are much worse than ours. Some are better, right? So also with our national footprint, we look to actually reach out to other counties that have a really good hold of hospital bed delays. What are your hospitals doing? Are there any policies that we can share? Are there any procedures or anything like best practices that we can grab from your local hospital that we can give to our hospitals that may be struggling? Or we do that, hey, our hospitals come up with a great system. Here at other counties, maybe give this to your hospital leadership and they can, they can implement it there. So that is one of that benefit. So there's so many things that goes into hospital wall delays, because some of it is just broken policies and procedures, and but most of it is just increased wall times, COVID, COVID when you need isolation rooms, right? There's only so many of those. The biggest one though is probably mental health beds, right? And that mental health placement. And so we feel for the hospitals. If they can't get people off of the floor and discharged to rooms, they can't get people off of those ER beds up to the floor, right? And then, but unfortunately, we feel the end results of that, not only just due to the pay of lost man hours on the road, morale, but really it's not having ambulances out into the community where they need to be responding to these 911. Right? So that's why we get innovative by putting BLS tiered response into our system, by very aggressive hiring, ET3 implementation, all that kind of stuff. It makes you have to get creative, right? Until we can get a hold of some of the other, right?
So does the ETS program also cover when you get mental health calls? Or is it
So,
purely,
we're hoping, so what ET3 brings, and again, California is a little different. There's some states, so California doesn't allow alternate destination in a lot of cases, right? Where you maybe have a patient that is mental health patient, no medical issue whatsoever. Hey, can I grab them and bring them specifically to a mental health clinic, right? If they even have it, right?
yeah,
Or, hey, can I bring you to an urgent care clinic instead of a hospital ER, right? Unfortunately, in California, and I think over time we'll get there again, crisis breeds innovation, and something that we wish we had seen a lot of years ago. We'll hopefully start, but right now, California doesn't really allow alternate destination providers for the most part, especially in this county, it does not. So unfortunately, get a call, grab them, you got to take the patient to the ER. And then it just causes this back. But again, we're really excited that it's new for our county. I think the closest county doing the ET3 telehealth thing is SSB, which is Placer County, and they've seen a lot of success out of it. So they're 6 months in. It's just another tool. In the end, there's no really risk to the patient, because if they want to go to the hospital, or providers get on scene and say, no, this person needs to go to the hospital, they're going to the hospital. So that doesn't change. It gives them this other option of, in today's technology, which is really cool and innovative. I said within a minute, boom, all of a sudden you're face to face with the doctor, and you're having that conversation with them. And if you can figure out and resolve those issues right there over the call, whether it be prescription being filled, or hey, I kind of freaked out. I have COVID, now I have some minor symptoms. that doctor giving them the peace of mind, no, you're okay, there's nothing the ER is gonna do for you. Okay, I feel better now, maybe you don't go, or you don't go to. So yeah, it's something that a lot of community, or everywhere we've started this has been pretty successful, so we're really excited to start it here.
Another question is last GRC afterwards, we had a really good discussion with you and Councilmember Wright, who I was hoping would be here today, but about response times. And I think that you're in contract with the county, but every time county looks at that contract or it's up for renewal, or there's some of this criticism of response times between fire versus EMS and your paramedics and I know there's a lot of reasons for that I think aren't really out there. The public doesn't really know. Could you talk about some of that maybe?
Yeah, so how 911 contracts are made in most counties are that companies bid for these RFPs, right? And there are a certain amount of contracts, and that is governed by the LENSA, which is right now Mountain Valley. And Mountain Valley holds a contract. Within that contract, there's 911 response time requirements, right? And that is kind of, unfortunately, the only way we're measured, right? And a lot of times is, are you on scene 90% of the time in the time that we said you were going to be? Some of those response times are very difficult and hard response times, right? So yeah, so when all of a sudden you get in our contract started right before COVID. So we signed our contract, and again, we've been providing services, like I said, for many, many years. We started this contract and COVID hit right out. We had very aggressive COVID screening policies, like I was talking about earlier. So the good thing is we keep our patients safe, but that also hurts because we catch a lot of positive COVID people, right? Healthcare, you get COVID too. All right, we're having a surge right now, and sure enough, that's going to hurt us. So, and before even California law was in place, we really did our part to support employees by paying them to be at home, to rest, recover, whether it's them or their family, right? Doing what's right for them. But with those aggressive COVID screenings and things like that, it causes a lot of people to be out on work, right? So you take that, you take the staffing shortages, you take hospital wall time delays, and all these things, the huge amount of increased call volume. And yeah, our compliance took a really big hit, right? Not that people weren't getting ambulances, not that we weren't showing up to every scene, but if you just judge us from a number matrix, then yeah, we'd be easy to beat up, right? Not that we weren't trying our best and it wasn't aggressive time, and our numbers have greatly, vastly improved. Now with COVID, I want to say improving because again, we're getting a spike, but hopefully we're through the worst of it. Things have been on the uptick since, right? And we know when we have these upticks in COVID, then our compliance will drop because of all those things. More employees are out, the families are out, patients increasing, hospital wall times, and it causes this bigger picture that unfortunately not everyone looks at, right? They just look at the number line and says, oh, you guys aren't doing what you need to do. Right.
Everybody knows how to tell time. Not everybody knows how to look at an EMS system to see what's working and what's failing.
So I'd say the good thing that is coming up that we're seeing in a lot of counties now. Now counties are drafting their RFP, their 911 ambulance contracts to not so much focus on response times, right? But to focus on clinical outcomes, right? So that is what healthcare is going to. I think all agencies are going to move to that because what we realize is driving lights and sirens and getting there in a certain amount of time really it benefits a very small sector of patient population that call 911, right? Your cardiac problems, your stroke problems, your certain breathing problems, right? And so sure, you always will need some element of driving lights and siren for these immediate patients. But for the majority of 911 patients, they don't need it, right? And so is there a better way to have a better matrix of success than just you get there within 8 minutes, right? And that is what a lot of county RFPs are going to, because they understand that that's actually more important than did you get there in a certain amount of time. There's always going to be a level of response time compliance, but a lot of new contracts are focusing away from that. Because a lot of times most studies, you'll see any study that you kind of Google is in there. All code 3 driving does is puts a community at risk, it puts a provider at risk, it puts a patient at risk. Other than a very, very small subset of patients, right, that will always have that. But should we be doing that for the majority? And no, we probably should, right? And so we look forward to in the future in different contracts and RFP, I think, and we hope that we go to something like that. Because really, that's what we should be judged off of, is our clinical outcomes and how are we taking care of the patient, how's the patient's their whole customer service aspect of it, and most importantly, their clinical outcomes. And not so much did you get there super fast, lights and sirens. So yeah, but there is a bigger picture, which is why I really appreciate this group letting me come and talk to you, because I don't know if everyone knows the bigger picture of what goes into running ambulance service and 911 ambulance service and the challenges that are there and the overall bigger picture that goes into something like compliance, right? And how you could look at a number and have questions, right? And not see the whole picture that goes into that, other than, oh, we're not just hitting some benchmark that was there. So
Daniel, it used to be, I don't know if it's still, you don't report your own response times. It's calculated for you by the regulatory agency.
yeah, so it's through a program that's governed by the Mountain Valley. We don't report our response time. It's very transparent what they see. They report to us. There are some things that we can get exemptions from, right? That are just kind of delays that are beyond our control, right? But yeah, it's nothing that we reported out. So
And that's different, right, from my understanding is the other fire services report their own times, is that?
I believe so. I'm new to the county, I believe so, but I don't want to speak to them. I don't even really know if they have response time requirements. I think they're like national standards, right? And they're that first responder agencies. We have dynamic postings, which I think is really cool and strong, right? We don't have stations. We have a main operation, but we don't have stations that were just there. All of our units are 12-hour units. Where I think we put 36 ambulances on the road at peak times, and they bounce all throughout the city, depending upon the level of ambulances. And we use kind of these heat maps and this really cool technology that almost can predict where the calls are going to be. So we know at what time of the day, where calls are going to be, at least best case scenario, and that's where we post our ambulances in the city. So when you see ambulances that are on the corner and they're sitting there and you think, oh, they're not doing anything, right? They're there for a reason. They're there because that's a post location, because we know that odds are that's where a call is going to resonate from in that area, right? So our ambulances are moving all day long, posting throughout all of Stanislaus County to make the best coverage we can in a bit of it's a highly educated, but it's an educated guessing game of where's your next call going, right? And so they're never stopped. They're always moving all throughout the day, and it allows us just this dynamic post, and we're never stationary to just better serve our population. Again, the success of that is how many ambulances you can have on the road, right? And that's been challenging in the last couple for sure.
So my wife watches all the fire and hospital TV shows. So I know that every ambulance call is a matter of life or death. And dramatic life or death. But in general, statistically, and you may not have the exact number, but what percentage of the calls are those cardiac or stroke or life or death? If you're not there in a certain amount of minutes, then the patient's in trouble.
I would be going high if I said 30%. Yeah. And that actually needed a code 3 response would even be way less than that, right? Because they've determined that most times with cardiac, right? Sometimes it depended upon the heart attack you're having. you know, if you need a cath lab and that's a time sensitive thing. But a lot of it just adds stress to the patients, that adds that increased workload with heart. Sometimes that can do damage, right? Traumas, obviously getting traumas to trauma centers are very important. And then the only other one is, you know, strokes, right? And getting stroke patients to that stroke center in a timely manner. But with technologies, hospitals, you know, you can get a lot of those stroke services 3 hours after first sign of the stroke, a lot of times, if not more. Luckily, the hospitals have become excellent clinicians that they've always been. But our ambulances, in a lot of ways, are those kind of mobile ER clinics, right? We can deal with a ton of stuff, especially respiratory and all these other things to get that care. And we've definitely found through studies that driving fast with lights and sirens, that's not necessarily important. Right? It is
I'm
when
sure it's a lot harder.
it's a lot more fun for sure, right? That's one of those things that bring people to the job, right? So that's one of those things that are like, oh, it's cool, but yeah, I can't say it's not cool, but yeah.
It's easier to be a cop too. So.
Yeah, yeah, so it's a very challenging time in healthcare. We will be, I think we're poised more than others to get through it for sure. But it doesn't mean that we're not immune to it. As large as we are, right? We're still very much locally owned, and locally operated. And you know, it's hard. There's not a paramedic school in this county right now, so we have to try to draw from outside talent or outside schools. You know, thank goodness, I think Merced Junior College is getting ready to start a paramedic program. So we're super happy about that. But right now we're pulling from paramedic schools from junior colleges outside the area or NCTI in Livermore or Roseville, right? And then we have to compete with all those other big cities to get people to come there, right? So that's also a challenge kind of specifically for this county. It just, we don't make a ton of our own paramedics per se, right? Or we have to send them out to outside paramedic schools and hopefully they come back, right? So
Where's the closest school?
so we also own NCTI, which was probably the largest, it's the largest private paramedic program. We probably actually produce the most amount of paramedic and EMTs. Those closest are in Livermore and Roseville, Rockland, right? And then some of the junior colleges have, I don't think Stockton has one. I think junior colleges that are close to us, I know the Sacramento County has a couple junior colleges that have paramedic schools, and Merced is getting ready to start their first one in August. So not in our county, but closer, you know, will allow us to send sponsored students to that school along with any other one we can get them in. But we really have learned that we have to grow our own, right? We've kind of gotten away from trying to bring in outside paramedics and all that and say, okay, we need to create them from the ground up, right? And we'll get more success that way. But again, that takes time, right? Especially with the 2-year delay for schools and for COVID, it takes time to rebound from that now. So, you know, but we'll get there.
So if you have an AMR employee who's an EMT, they want to go to paramedic school and you talked about scholarships. Is that a full-time where they essentially don't work for AMR for 2 years and they just go to school, or are they going on nights and weekends?
So we still have them work. So we have
Okay.
them work. Paramedic schools usually are 2 days a week,
Okay,
full-time, right? Those days. So it is hard. You know, we've looked into actually rethinking our own policies, and right now we make them still work full-time and then go to school and work with their schooling. But you know, that's that double-edged sword of should we let them go part-time to then go to school, but now we don't have them as much part-time, you know, and so and when we need staff more than anything, you're like, well, I would love to do this part-time, but that's very difficult right now when we're short-staffed. But we want to send you to school because you're short-staffed, right? So it's that balancing act of you know, doing what's right for them, but also making, first and foremost, we have to do what's right for the community and make sure we do what we can to get those ambulances on the road.
it's kind of a related question. I think the thing that I didn't know you guys did, maybe nobody else did, is the the tactical, which looks kind of cool. Are those programs where you're getting people who are already trained, or you're getting veterans, or, police officers or so forth?
Yeah.
Or is that something where, again, you have that EMT that you say, hey, you really want to be a tactical, we're gonna invest in you to.
We do that. We invest and do most of our training from the inside. Not that we wouldn't get, a lot of our pilots, right, are ex-military. We have a recruitment team that is just specifically set up to recruit veterans,
Mhm.
right? That's a big important thing for us is that veteran population of because they have that natural service right in them. And can we take our veteran population and grab them and again bring them into healthcare and maybe say, hey, have you ever thought about being an EMT? Start there, and then hopefully you'll want to become a medic, and then you'll want to become a flight medic, and then maybe you'll want to become a nurse, and you'll want to actually stay with us and not go to the hospital. You want to work in a critical care thing. There's so many things you could do with AMR, make AMR a career. I worked with AMR for coming up on 18 years now, and I started as a field paramedic in the field and did everything from the tactical teams. AMR sent me to SWAT medic school in Dublin, right? I was on all the FEMA deployment teams, getting to do that, and to travel all over the state to help them in national crisis and become a paramedic and supervisor, be an operations manager to, now my regional director role. And so AMR is one of those private ambulance companies that you can make a career. And maybe you want to go into the clinical and you want to teach, right? And we can, either within our own, we have a whole group that is just dedicated to clinical. Maybe that's where your passion will go, and you'll be a clinical, clinician, or you want to be a teacher at NCTI and go there, or maybe I want to be on the helicopters. I'm going to go get my flight paramedic, and all those things that we give you opportunity to do. And we have mechanics, we have vehicle service technicians. We have, like I said, our dispatch. Maybe you want to go into dispatch. In the later years of your ambulance, that could be a young person game a lot of times, right? And that's hard on the body, but we can make it a career if we want, which is what I love most about our company, because not everyone wants to go to the hospital, not everyone wants to go to the fire department, right? And those that do, great. We'll give you a good name and give you great training if you move on. Great, right? We're happy to have those relationships, and when they work and then leave AMR, Michael is always say, yeah, that was a great place to work, and that's somewhere where we should want to partner with, right? And so, but for most of our clinicians, again, that's 250 people. They want to be at AMR, and they want to be on ambulances, and they're dedicated to their community and being on ambulance.
I just sent an email to the Institute of Technology because they keep looking for new programs to add into what their offerings are. It's just sharing, but.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, that's it. And the Earn While You Learn is going to be really cool, and it's new for our county. But what I'm most excited about is I always look for opportunities. How can we have a bigger footprint in our community, and to be just a part of this community? And I really think that Earn While You Learn is going to be that, right? There's a lot of high school. We talked to the high school work development board, and they have ERM programs. They're kind of like a really introduction to first aid, and a lot of our high schools here have those programs, right? So there's already a group of people that have shown interest in medicine, right? Can we now partner with those high schools and say, hey, graduating seniors that went to this program, how would you like to go to EMT school at a junior college, right? We can support you that, and we can promise you a job as soon as you're done at EMT school, right? And you will come out, work for the largest company, private ambulance company in the nation, right? We will give you a job, and we can support you from there, and really start a career path right out of high school, right? And so I like that we can partner with our local community to find that group of employees, right? Or that group of potential employees. I'm excited. We'll have it up and going by the end of the year, for sure.
Any more questions? Just want to let you know, and Steve knows this, if he hasn't talked to you about already, but we have a monthly magazine, Progress. Always looking for articles as a member.
So I sent one to,
Oh, great.
where did, so I
Great.
sent it in actually for the July.
Okay,
I submitted the featured article with 2 pictures.
Yes.
Yeah.
You got it.
great.
Did you get it?
All right. Great.
If I did it correctly and had all the parameters, I tried, yeah, so
And anytime you have announcements or things like some of the
I appreciate
the
it.
scholarships or
programs
the
and such.
programs or, work opportunities, yeah. They do announce people on the move and announcements, so.
I said, I'm
Yeah.
new to this county, but one of the first things that I discovered coming in here was I don't think we did a good job of saying who we are. And what we bring to this county and how big of a footprint we actually have. But that is what I'm hoping to change. I'm such an AMR fan and especially of what our awesome people do on the road. That's first and foremost. They keep everything running, our paramedics, EMTs. We wouldn't be anything about them. They do so much. And I just don't think they get the love and appreciation that probably other sectors of first responders get of how dedicated they are to this county and they're here and they're your community and they're your neighbors, right? And they have so much pride in working for AMR and working in this county specifically. And I hope to share that story with whoever wants to hear it. So again, I appreciate it. And if you have any questions or anything, I'll leave a bunch of my cards here. So I appreciate it.
Great, thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Good job.
Any announcements, Trish, or anything?
The biggest announcement that we have been sharing all week is that our very first sustainability event is a week and a half from now. We will be highlighting some really cool speakers, sharing information that in general our community doesn't hear about as well. A mix of pathways actually. Stan State will be talking about the lakes they have out of the campus and how that's actually part of their recycling of water on the campus. We have a couple members that we've been certified. I'll share their story a little bit. The CEO of California Green Business Network will be talking about the program itself, and we are the countywide provider for certifying businesses here. Within any type of business and industry, there is a checklist for you, and we are on a mission to certify 30 this year, and we're at about 12. So we have a ways to go. It's a free service, and the sustainability event is a way for us to get some of that information out to more people. So if it's something you want to just learn about, if you're interested in purchasing a ticket or sponsoring the event or a table, bring other people that might want to learn about this to help get some of that out to the business community. We're really striving to get businesses countywide to do this effort. So join us on Wednesday, the 29th. I think it's the 29th. It's then also on the 28th. So I think it's Wednesday. It's on Wednesday, but I think it's the 29th. We'll be at Seasons 11 to about 1:30. It'll be a very packed and informative event. So that's my big one.
It is the plan.
Thank you. Yes, Wednesday. And it's at Stevens on the county, so it's very central.
Do you know, off the subject but related, is it still gonna be called Seasons now that it's sold? Do you know?
No, I thought you said it was becoming something totally different.
Yeah, well, it's sold to Celebration Center Church, which is near the mission in the airport district. They're trying to get out of the airport district. And I think I heard they're gonna continue to still be an event center as well, but I didn't know if they were gonna go under the Seasons name. Yeah. Yeah, and I know Jason and I were talking to them about joining the chamber, so. Great, all right. So off the record, real quick, not off the record, but real quick before we end here.
Silent film.
Yeah, the green team certification, the certification, is that difficult? Because and I should know this, I know, but I've had enough conversations with you, but because my thought is as a business, like, oh, if I want to get certified, I'm gonna have to, it's gonna be expensive. I'm gonna have to change out all my light bulbs to LEDs, and I'm gonna have to do this and this, and that's gonna be only big companies can afford to do that.
No, it doesn't work quite like that.
Okay.
We go through the certification process, but every industry has a different checklist.
Okay.
So it's not
Okay.
a cookie cutter thing.
Okay.
As program providers, for the county.
Yeah.
If there's funded grants available to offset the cost of lighting,
Yeah.
that's a need for you, we can
Yeah.
access those.
Okay,
It's completely case by case.
Okay.
But
great.
there's no fee to do it,
Yeah,
but there could be costs incurred
Yeah.
to adapt certain things, but it's not an all or nothing.
yeah. The old days when we did green certifications, it was based on a checklist that like Crystal Creamery had come up with and Frito-Lay and all of these that had their own, green teams. And it was like best practices and like the only one we were certifying were really big companies that were
This is
doing it
not-
anyway,
This is
so,
not that, and the checklist is generated. I don't know what they call it, from the Green Business Network.
Mhm.
Partially funded by Cal EPA. It's a
Yeah.
state standard checklist that's used in counties
Right.
all up and down the state.
okay,
So
Okay.
all those industries get the same checklist,
Yeah.
no matter where they are in the state. And Crystal Creamery, we've done, Valley Milk, we've done Pizzeria Halt. And we did an engineering office that has 4 staff people in it.
Yeah.
I mean, there truly
Okay.
is the checklist for every.
okay, great. Now it's good to know. And I would think it'd be a easier sell in the sense that with all of the waste regulations coming out in the city and the county and, by 2025. And so now people are starting to have to separate their garbage and
It's all,
anyway,
all of this is layered into that.
Yeah.
process.
Yeah.
It's all
So,
guiding.
if you're doing it anyways, I think it'd be great. So, all right.
We're just trying to find funding and time.
Yeah.
Stakeholder partners.
Okay.
So
So I am saying I am ending the meeting. We'll see you back in July and we don't have a speaker yet for July, but the feelers are out, so. Everyone have a great